Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My father kindly sponsored a struggling student, and even brought him home. Looking at the young man with his delicate and handsome features, I suddenly realized I had been reborn. In my previous life, I loved him as if my life depended on it. When he said he didn't have money for food, I handed over all my allowance without hesitation. When he said he was bullied at school, I stood by his side without a second thought, ready to take on the entire world for him. I protected him, shielded him, and even spent a fortune, leveraging all my resources to launch him into stardom in the entertainment industry. But the first thing he did after becoming famous was to spread lies about me, claiming that I had harassed and bullied him since childhood. He encouraged his obsessive fans to come after me, pushing me to the brink of death. Now that I've woken up in this timeline, I'm determined to watch how his life crumbles without my help. Emma, come here. Let me introduce you to someone. My father's voice broke my thoughts. This is Liam Carter, the student I've been sponsoring. You can call him Liam. Following my father's gaze, I looked toward the living room. Standing there was a boy dressed in plain clothes. He was tall and thin, his hands gripping the hem of his shirt so tightly that his fingertips had turned white. His expression showed nervousness and unease, but his posture remained straight, exuding a sense of stubborn resilience. In my past life, I had been completely captivated by this very image. His combination of vulnerability and defiance had drawn me in, making me helplessly devoted. But in the end, it led to my utter destruction, leaving my family shattered and me dead. I could never forget that it was him who had deliberately leaked my address to those rabid fans, stoking their fury until it consumed me. Sponsoring him? Fine. Bringing him home? Absolutely not. I wasn't about to live with a stranger. Slowly, I walked over to the sofa and sat down, letting my cold detachment show in both my tone and demeanor. It's fine to sponsor him, but bringing him home? That's too much. I'm not comfortable living with strangers. Emma, his family situation is quite difficult, my father replied patiently. If I'm not mistaken, our family has supported many underprivileged students. If everyone was like him, wouldn't this place turn into a shelter? I interrupted him, shooting a glance at Liam Carter, my tone icy. Yes, we've sponsored dozens of students, and he's just one of them. His father passed away, and his mother is gravely ill. Feeling sorry for him, you brought him here to study? I used to sympathize with him too, even helped him with small things and encouraged him to adapt quickly to his new environment. But clearly my kindness didn't pay off. Some people are just ingrates. No matter how much you give, it's never enough. Emma, Liam is different from the others. He has no family here. He's pitiful. Let him stay for a while, okay? Once the college entrance exams are over, he'll leave, my father pleaded. Looking at my uncharacteristic harshness, pitiful or not, if he doesn't have a place to stay, let him live in one of the nearby apartments. It's not like our family doesn't own extra properties, I shot back coldly. My father looked at me disapprovingly. Emma, why are you suddenly so cold-hearted? Letting him stay here for a while won't hurt you. Fine, I said, standing abruptly. Then I'll move into the school dorms next week. Let him have the house. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away, refusing to engage further. Wait, don't be like this, my father called after me in frustration. Finally, he sighed and turned to Liam. All right, you can stay in one of the nearby apartments for now. I'll have someone clean and prepare a room for you. Liam's disappointment was evident, but he managed to smile politely. It's okay, Mr. Brown. You've already done so much for me. I'm truly grateful. The next day was the start of the school term. After breakfast, Mr. Cooper was already waiting outside with the car. As I opened the door, I found Liam already seated inside. Mr. Cooper glanced at me and explained. Miss Emma, Mr. Brown said Liam's school is on the way, so he'll be riding with you. Liam looked at me eagerly and handed me a carefully packed breakfast he had prepared. When I looked at the breakfast in Liam's hands, a wave of disgust surged through me. No need, I said coldly. I don't trust food from you. It's filthy. Ignoring his kindness, I turned away and settled into the front passenger seat. Then, as if to emphasize my disdain, I waved my hand dramatically. What's that awful smell in here? Uncle Cooper, open the windows. It's suffocating. Liam froze, clearly stunned that I would say something so blunt. In my previous life, from the moment he stepped into our house, I had been nothing but kind to him. To protect his fragile pride, I had gone out of my way to buy him expensive clothes and shoes, even hiding the price so he wouldn't feel burdened. Thinking back now, I was nothing but a fool. Next time, let him find his own way to school, I said, leaning back against the seat and closing my eyes. I don't like sharing rides with others. Both Liam and I attended the same private high school. My father had transferred him there to make it easier to look after him, which also resulted in us being placed in the same class. On the first day of school, Liam enthusiastically ran to the campus snack shop and bought an armful of treats, presenting them to me like offerings. His eyes gleamed with anticipation and a desire to please, as if these small gestures would bridge the growing distance between us. Between classes, he always sought opportunities to approach me, trying to ease the tension in our relationship. It wasn't long before rumors began to circulate around the school about some supposed romance between us. In my previous life, I had naively believed that he truly liked me. I poured my energy into supporting his dreams, investing in his career, buying scripts and hiring directors for him. Once he achieved fame, he would publicly announce our relationship to the world, fans included. In the end, he did make an announcement, but it wasn't the one I had imagined. Instead, he declared to the world that I had relentlessly pursued him, painting me as an obsessive stalker. During those years, I sacrificed my education and career to help him rise to the top of the entertainment industry. After his betrayal, I was left heartbroken and resolved to start anew. Just as I was beginning to pick up the pieces, he called me, claiming he wanted to apologize in person. Despite my hesitation, I agreed to meet him at the cafe we used to frequent. But when I stepped inside, it wasn't an apology waiting for me. It was a mob of his crazed fans. They hurled insults at me, their words turning into physical blows. In the chaos, one particularly deranged fan, who suffered from severe mental illness, lunged at me with a penknife. I was stabbed dozens of times, each strike cutting deep. I collapsed in a pool of my own blood, watching helplessly as my life slipped away. Even after my death, my soul lingered, hovering above as I watched Liam ascend to stardom, stepping on the resources I had provided to become an award-winning actor. The fan who murdered me evaded justice, hiding behind the excuse of mental illness. Because of Liam, I lost everything. Perhaps heaven took pity on me and granted me a second chance. This time, I won't repeat the same mistakes. As the saying goes, retribution may be delayed, but it always comes. I'll see to it that he falls from the heights of his success straight into the depths of despair. The sound of the dismissal bell echoed across the campus. The schoolyard was abuzz as students flooded out of the gates. To my surprise, a sleek Maybach was parked at the entrance, drawing gasps of admiration from my classmates. Through the crowd, I spotted a familiar figure heading toward one of the cars. It was Liam, dressed in a designer school uniform, surrounded by a group of fawning classmates. As I walked closer, I noticed the car and driver were part of the new arrangements my father had made for him. "Wow, Liam, is that your car? It's so fancy," one of his friends exclaimed enviously. Liam's lips curled into a small smug smile, but when he turned his head and saw me standing nearby, that smile froze. "Emma," he called out stiffly, "your dad said you're coming over for dinner tonight. Want to come with me?" Liam asked, trying to distract me. I refused his invitation, staring at him with a look he couldn't quite read before turning and walking away. "Liam, your car is so cool. When are you going to take us for a spin?" One of the students chimed in, attempting to cozy up to him. "Yeah, totally," another agreed. "You're new here, so you probably don't know a lot of people yet. Maybe we can grab a meal together sometime." Hearing their eager flattery, I couldn't help but smirk slightly. In my previous life, I'd never realized just how fake Liam could be. But then again, he was an actor, pretending to be genuine was second nature to him. I wondered, wouldn't it be fun to expose his true colors in front of everyone? In the following days, Liam frequently skipped evening study sessions. My desk mate mentioned that he was rumored to be dating someone, a classmate named Clara, who came from a similarly well-off family. Sure enough, after classes, I often saw them strolling hand in hand through the school corridors, looking blissfully in love. At the same time, gossip about Liam being a rich kid spread like wildfire around campus. Someone had snapped photos of him entering and leaving a high-end neighborhood. Observant classmates also noted that every piece of clothing he wore was from a luxury designer brand, each item worth a fortune. The romance between Liam and Clara quickly became the stuff of fairy tales, with everyone talking about how perfect they were together. On a sunny weekend morning, sunlight streamed through the windows onto the dining table as I made my way downstairs for breakfast. To my surprise, there was an extra person sitting with my father. Liam looked a little uneasy, clutching his backpack tightly. "Good morning, Emma," my dad greeted warmly before turning to Liam and pouring him a glass of fresh milk. Liam had some trouble with his studies, so I invited him over to ask you for help, Dad said, patting Liam on the shoulder and gesturing for him to sit. Liam looked nervous as he carefully pulled a workbook out of his bag, casting a hopeful glance my way. I glanced at the workbook in his hands, then deliberately ignored it, choosing instead to sit at the farthest end of the table from him. Liam seemed taken aback by my indifference, glancing between me and my father as though searching for words but holding back. Uncle," he finally spoke, his voice hesitant. "Next week is my birthday. I was wondering if I could borrow your house to throw a party. Is that okay?" I rolled my eyes at his boldness, thinking, seriously, this is my house. If you want a party, why not rent a hotel? You're not welcome here. Turning slightly, I gave him a sidelong glance filled with barely veiled disdain. Liam faltered, clearly caught off guard by my reaction, and turned to my father with a pitiful look. "Uncle, I've already promised my classmates. Please let me host it here," he pleaded. My dad looked at me, seemingly unsure of what to do. After a moment of hesitation, he said, "Emma, he's already told his friends. Can't you just let it slide this once? It's only for half a night. It won't disrupt you too much. You could go out for dinner that evening. I'll give you some money for it." "No need," I replied coldly. "I can afford my own dinner. Just make sure the place is spotless afterward." After some thought, I finally agreed to their request. If Liam wanted to keep up his pretense, I'd let him for now. The night of Liam's party arrived quickly, but instead of going out for dinner, I decided to stay and observe the spectacle. The living room was filled with laughter and cheers, the noise bouncing off the walls. As guests milled about, chatting and exploring every corner of the house, a striking figure emerged from the wine cellar. Clara Evans. She was holding a bottle of exquisite Lafite, its crystal-clear surface glinting under the lights. "Liam," she exclaimed excitedly, holding the bottle high above her head. "Look what I found." It was a rare vintage wine that had been part of my grandfather's private collection for years. "Look what I found," Clara exclaimed, holding up the bottle of vintage wine she had taken from the wine cellar. "Let's drink until we drop tonight," she said, leaning seductively against Liam's shoulder. She wrapped her arm around his, her sugary, cotton candy-like voice dripping with affection, making anyone watching feel like they were witnessing the epitome of young love. I sat quietly, observing the scene. Then Clara's gaze shifted toward me. With an almost tipsy sway, she made her way over, a hint of provocation glinting in her eyes. "Emma, why are you always staring at my boyfriend?" she asked, her delicate hand lightly resting on my shoulder. Her tone carried a challenge, soft yet sharp. I glanced at her indifferently, but didn't respond. Unfazed by my silence, Clara pressed on, her voice dripping with mockery. "I heard that when you were younger, you were always clinging to Liam. He couldn't stand you. If it weren't for his social grace, he wouldn't have invited you to his birthday party. So that's what Liam had been saying about me behind my back." Clara straightened slightly, her tone turning serious and laced with a warning. "Liam is my boyfriend now. You better not get any ideas about him. Otherwise, don't blame me for being unfriendly." With that, she turned on her heel and left. The night deepened, the stars dotting the sky like tiny pinpricks of light. The celebration began to wind down, the earlier excitement gradually fading into the quiet of the evening. Exhausted, most of the guests called for rides and started heading home. Meanwhile, Liam and Clara were still tangled up on the staircase, kissing passionately. Their lips clung to each other like glue, saliva glistening under the dim light. They nestled in the stairwell's corner, their intimacy reminiscent of two butterflies locked in a fervent dance, oblivious to the world around them. Most of the spectators had dispersed, leaving only the occasional whisper or giggle floating through the air. Once the party had ended and the guests had been escorted home by the drivers, I headed downstairs to call my uncle, who had just arrived at the airport at 1 a.m. I returned to the villa with him, using the excuse of fetching a blanket for my uncle. I pushed open the door to my room, and what greeted me froze me in place. "Ah!" I screamed instinctively, unable to contain my shock. Hearing my cry, my uncle hurried to the room, and we were met with the sight of two naked bodies intertwined on my bed, their movements accompanied by unmistakable sounds of intimacy. "Who are you and what are you doing in Emma's room?" my uncle demanded. Demanded, his voice thunderous. The pair on the bed turned their heads abruptly, realizing they'd been caught. "Ah!" came Clara's piercing scream, sharp enough to shake the walls. Both Liam and Clara scrambled to disentangle themselves, hastily grabbing for their clothes. I watched their panicked movements without blinking, my voice steady and cold as I finally spoke. "Liam, I let you use the house for a party, not to do this in my room." The room fell silent for a moment, like the calm before a storm. Clara, seemingly jolted awake from a dream, turned to Liam with wide eyes. Her face, which had been flushed with passion, paled instantly before morphing into a mask of fury. Her gaze was sharp enough to cut. "Liam, what the hell is going on? This isn't your house," she roared, her voice echoing through the room like thunder. Liam's face turned an ashen gray, his bloodshot eyes locking onto me with a venomous glare, as if I were his mortal enemy. Through gritted teeth he spat. "Emma, you're truly despicable. You knew Dad wouldn't cut off my sponsorship so easily, so you used this opportunity to humiliate me." Liam muttered, his voice low and bitter. He then reached toward Clara, attempting to calm her anger, but she shoved him away with force. He staggered back a few steps before finally regaining his balance, his face a mix of embarrassment and helplessness. Liam could only watch as Clara turned and walked away, leaving him standing there with fury and unwillingness burning in his eyes. He turned to glare at me, seething in silence. "Starting today, our family will stop sponsoring you," I announced coldly, my voice devoid of emotion. "No, you can't do that. How will I continue going to school?" Liam's face went deathly pale, as if all the blood had been drained from it in an instant. "Whether or not you go to school has nothing to do with me," I interrupted, my voice cutting and indifferent. "After what you've done, did you think I'd let you stay in my presence?" Liam stared at me, his eyes filled with rage and frustration. Then, as if recalling something, his voice suddenly rose. "You did this on purpose, didn't you? You planned everything. Emma, why are you doing this to me? What did I ever do to you? Why don't you ask yourself that?" I replied, tilting my head slightly to avoid his angry, resentful gaze. My voice remained calm and detached. "Tonight, you should focus on how you're going to explain Clara revealing your so-called identity to your classmates. Now leave. Don't ever let me see you again." I waved dismissively, as if the mere sight of him disgusted me. Liam clenched his jaw tightly, glaring at me with resentment, but he ultimately turned and left. The illusion Liam had so carefully crafted of being a wealthy heir shattered like a bubble. His vanity and lies were exposed, mercilessly evaporating like dew under the scorching sun. Clara, furious at his deceit, led a group of classmates in exacting revenge. His desk was stuffed with all sorts of bugs and spiders. During breaks, a group of boys cornered him in the restroom and drenched him with buckets of icy, filthy water in the frigid winter. Liam had no choice but to hide in a bathroom stall, trembling, his clothes soaked and clinging to his body. The cold wind seeped through the cracks, piercing him to the bone. Clara, once the school's most admired girl and a dream to many, had fiercely protected Liam due to his supposed wealth. But now that his facade was gone and he was revealed as a mere impoverished student relying on sponsorship, no one held back their disdain. I stood at a distance, watching Liam's pitiful state. A sense of satisfaction surged through me. It was exhilarating, but my triumph was short-lived. At the school gate, my father's secretary intercepted me. Miss Emma, the CEO has requested you come to the office, the secretary said. I was led to my father's company, my mind racing with possibilities. Could it be that Dad wanted to congratulate me for securing first place in my grade again? Maybe he had a surprise prepared. With that thought, excitement bubbled inside me as I pushed open the door to his office. A heavy file flew past my face like an out-of-control meteor, slamming onto the floor with a thud that reverberated through the room. Startled, I looked up and saw my father, his face shadowed with disappointment and anger. Beside him stood Liam, no longer in his school uniform, but wearing tattered clothes that exposed bruises on his arms. Emma, how could you stop Liam's sponsorship without my permission? My father's voice was as cold and unyielding as iron, striking me like a hammer. My mind reeled, and all the excitement and joy I'd felt moments ago evaporated instantly. Liam, tears brimming in his eyes, choked out, "Uncle, it's all my fault. Please don't blame Emma." Furious, I retorted, "Dad, I already told you about this. Liam was in my room with his girlfriend doing that kind of thing. How could we possibly stop his sponsorship?" My father asked, his tone heavy with authority. "Even if Liam made you uncomfortable by doing such things in your room, you could have just switched rooms or let him have yours. Last time, I didn't hold it against you when you threw a tantrum and kicked Liam out, but this time you must immediately reinstate his sponsorship." My father's disappointed gaze bore into me, his voice leaving no room for argument. I forced myself to remain calm, even though my emotions turned like a storm inside. Without saying another word, I turned and left the office, my heart full of resentment. As I closed the door behind me, I caught a glimpse through the narrow gap. My father was gently patting Liam's shoulder, his expression filled with patience and warmth. For a moment, it looked as if they were truly father and son. I could faintly hear my father's comforting words to Liam. "No one at school will bully you anymore. Don't be upset. I promised your mother that I'd take good care of you." That night, after ensuring my father wasn't home, I slipped into his study in silence. Moving carefully, I searched through shelves and drawers, until hidden within an old dusty book, I found an aged photograph. In the photo, a man held a woman close, both smiling radiantly with happiness. The man was my father, and the woman's face bore a striking resemblance to Liam. In that instant, my chest tightened as though gripped by an invisible hand. An indescribable emotion surged within me. Judging by the time frame, this must have been before my parents were married. Liam must be the son of the woman in the photo, possibly even my father's illegitimate child. Memories of my past life flooded back. My foolish devotion to Liam, the time I wasted on him, and the humiliation I endured from his obsessive fans. The thought left a bitter taste in my mouth. No wonder my father always favored Liam from my previous life to this one. His attitude had never changed. The realization left me cold, and as I wiped away a tear, I quietly returned the photo to its place. The next day, I walked into the classroom with a completely different demeanor. In front of everyone, I stood up for Liam. "Emma, what's gotten into you? Why are you defending that liar?" Clara's sharp voice cut through the air as she stormed up to me. "Liam is a student our family sponsors," I replied, feigning reluctance. "My dad made it very clear that I have to treat him well." I glanced at Liam with an expression of forced helplessness, my eyes glistening as though I might burst into tears at any moment. Otherwise, Dad said I'd regret it. As soon as I finished speaking, the classroom buzzed with whispers. All eyes turned to Liam, filled with suspicion and curiosity. How could a sponsored student be more important than his own daughter? A boy speculated loudly. "Liam must be your dad's illegitimate child." The bold statement sent a ripple of shock through the class. I cast a quick glance at Liam, whose face had turned pale. "That's ridiculous," he stammered, his voice shaky. "I have parents. There's no way I'm Emma's dad's illegitimate child. He only cares about me out of sympathy." "All right, enough. Liam isn't my dad's illegitimate child," I interjected, cutting off the discussion. "Stop spreading rumors." The whispers quieted, and I softened my tone. "Actually, I regret how I treated Liam these past few days. I want to apologize for my rash behavior." I turned to Liam with a gentle smile. "I know you're facing some challenges right now, So I'd like to invite you to stay at my house since your apartment has been cleared out. You can stay with us for a few days. Liam seemed taken aback by my sudden change in attitude, but after a moment's hesitation, he nodded and agreed. When I brought Liam home, my father was surprised, but he quickly relaxed upon seeing my apparent sincerity. His tightly furrowed brow gradually eased as he observed my demeanor. To make Liam feel more at home, I even suggested that he stay in the very room he had used for his inappropriate actions. I instructed the maids to prepare new toiletries and other essentials for him. My father watched my actions with a flicker of approval, his eyes even praising me for becoming more considerate and mature. I watched with my own eyes as Liam used the toothbrush, then swiftly placed it into a sealed bag, and replaced it with an identical new one. The sealed bag, along with a sample of my father's hair, was sent to a testing center. Liam was only a few months older than me. If he truly was my father's child, it would mean my father had an affair during his marriage to my mother. The company my father now managed was originally founded by my grandfather. After my grandfather's death, ownership passed to my father and uncle. Before my mother passed away, she had a contract drawn up by her lawyer and announced it to the entire company. The contract explicitly stated that if my father had an illegitimate child, he would lose his shares in the company and be forced to resign as chairman. Thinking back to my father's subtle reactions in my past life, how he responded when I confessed my feelings for Liam, and when Liam's fans attacked me, I couldn't help but take a sharp breath. But when the test results arrived, they revealed something I hadn't expected. Liam was not my father's child. After Liam moved into our home, his behavior mirrored what I remembered from my past life. He acted as if he were the young master of the house, indulging in lavish meals daily while his closet filled up with high-end designer clothes. Each time I noticed the growing ambition in his eyes, I silently sneered to myself. The old saying came to mind: before you destroy someone, first let them grow arrogant. I slyly instructed the maids to casually mention near Liam that my father's shares could be taken away if he had an illegitimate child. As I expected, Liam fell right into the trap. One day after school, Liam approached me, suggesting we take a walk by the river to talk things over. The night was dark as ink, with a cool breeze brushing against us. In the distance, birds chirped from the treetops, adding a lively touch to the otherwise quiet evening. We strolled side by side along the riverside path. Liam handed me a bottle of water, a faint smile on his face. "Emma, I don't know why you've been so hostile toward me, but we've lived together for a while now. I hope we can talk things out." I accepted the bottle, my gaze drifting to the dim streetlights flickering along the riverside. With an ambiguous smile, I glanced at him before slowly drinking from the bottle. Liam seemed satisfied with my response, finishing his own drink in one gulp. But what he didn't know was that the moment he handed me the bottle, I had already discreetly swapped our drinks. Soon his steps grew unsteady and his face flushed red. He touched his forehead in confusion, finally realizing something was wrong. "Emma, you switched the drinks," he shouted, his face contorted in rage. His eyes bulged as if he wanted to devour me alive. But it was already too late. At that moment, a group of small-time thugs from the park began approaching us. Seizing the opportunity, I shouted loudly enough for them to hear, "This is my dad's only illegitimate son. If you hold him for ransom, my dad will definitely pay a huge price to get him back." Ignoring the shock and panic in Liam's pale expression, I turned and ran off into the night. The next day, sunlight poured over the campus. Liam's seat in the classroom remained conspicuously empty. When the dismissal bell rang, I leisurely walked out of the classroom, only to see my father waiting for me at the school gate. Standing beside him was Liam, his face visibly bruised, his eyes filled with anger and resentment. The moment my father spotted me, he strode forward and, without hesitation, slapped me across the face. My right ear buzzed, and a sharp pain spread across my mouth. I tasted the salty tang of blood as I licked the corner of my lips. Just then my uncle, who had come to pick me up after work, witnessed what happened. Furious, he stormed up to my father, grabbed him by the collar, and slapped him hard across the face. "How dare you hit Emma?" my uncle roared, his voice trembling with anger. "Uncle, you're finally here," I said, my voice shaking as relief washed over me. My face hardened as all the frustration and fear I had been holding finally came pouring out. I had anticipated my father would confront me, so I called my uncle before school and asked him to pick me up afterward. Uncle clenched his fists, his expression dark as he glared at my father. "Lynch, what do you think you're doing hitting your own daughter?" Blood trickled from my father's nose as he held it with one hand, trying to stem the flow. Furious, he snapped, "This is a family matter. It's none of your business." His muffled voice, combined with his attempts to stop the bleeding, made him look almost comical. Uncle sneered coldly, "As long as I promised my father and sister that no one would bully Emma, it is my business. So tell me who here is the outsider." At the mention of my mother, my father's demeanor shifted. His usual calm composure crumbled, his emotions visibly flaring. The truth was undeniable. Before marrying my mother, my father was nothing more than an ordinary impoverished man. It was only through my mother and grandfather's support that he had climbed to where he stood now. A flicker of something crossed his face as he seemed to realize this, and his expression faltered. At last he lowered his hand and muttered, "Fine, we let it go this time, but there will be no more trouble with Liam going forward." Uncle, however, remained firm. "Lynch, you're the one in the wrong here. Apologize to Emma." To everyone's surprise, my father suddenly turned and slapped Liam hard across the face. Tears immediately welled up in Liam's eyes as he choked out a tearful "I'm sorry" to me before my father dragged him away. On the day of the board meeting, the secret recording of Liam and my father at school, along with the fabricated DNA test results I had prepared, detonated like two powerful bombs in the conference room. The tension in the air was palpable. Mr. Lin, who had initially maintained a facade of calm, suddenly became ashen-faced. "It's better to stop playing dumb and start considering your resignation," Uncle said, his voice cold as steel. He stood off to the side, his sharp gaze fixed on my father like a blade. For a moment, my father's expression edged with anger and disbelief. "What do you mean by that?" he spat, glaring at Uncle. Uncle smirked, his eyes icy. "Don't forget, Lin Chen-shu, how you confidently promised the board back then. You swore that if you ever had an illegitimate child, all of your shares would be unconditionally transferred to Emma." As his words settled over the room, the tension reached its peak. My father had climbed to his position as CEO by leveraging his connections and playing politics with the older shareholders. But those same shareholders, like reeds swaying in the wind, always shifted toward whoever held the most power. Whatever Uncle had promised them was enough for them to turn against my father, unanimously opposing his continued role as chairman. By midnight that evening, news of Lin Chen-shu's outing from Jiang Group had spread like wildfire, dominating the top headlines of the financial world. The announcement caused a stir throughout the business community. Uncle temporarily took over management of the company, promising to return it to me after I graduated from college. When I returned to the villa, my expression was cold as I ordered the maids to evict both Lin Chen-shu and Liam. Liam, a man both ungrateful and insatiably greedy, had yet to learn of my father's downfall. He screamed and cursed, his sharp voice echoing throughout the now empty villa. "Emma, just wait until Dad comes back. He'll make you pay for this." His voice reverberated off the walls of the villa, a property that had always been under my name. It was a birthday gift from my grandfather to my mother, and thus my inheritance. My father, attempting to console Liam, spoke in a gentle tone, trying to calm him down. Then, turning his gaze to me, he sighed deeply, his expression filled with disappointment. "Emma, I'm still your father, and Liam, he's practically your brother. Are you really going to be so ruthless, leaving no room for negotiation?" My father let out a deep sigh, his voice tinged with helplessness. I let out a soft laugh, mocking his naivety. Casually, I pulled out the DNA test results from the file cabinet and tossed them onto the table in front of Lin Chen-shu. "Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you that the previous test was fake. This is the real parentage report for you and Liam." Lin Chen-shu's face instantly turned pale. His hands trembled as he picked up the report, scanning its contents. Every word seemed to strike him like a hammer blow to the heart. You dared to deceive me." His voice quivered with anger as he turned to Liam and slapped him hard across the face. As his voice rose, it was no longer just filled with fury. It was tinged with despair. Liam's complexion drained of all color as he stared blankly. The report came as though the entire world was crumbling around him. His dreams of wealth, his fantasies of being part of an affluent family, all of it vanished like a puff of smoke. I watched the drama unfold with cold indifference, waving my hand to signal the maids to escort them out of the villa. That was the last time I saw either of them. Occasionally, I heard news about them through others. Lynch and Shu, unable to cope with the devastating blow, became mentally unstable and eventually developed dementia. He often muttered to himself about having another son. Liam, equally shattered by the harsh reality, dropped out of school. It was said that he started working at a nightclub as an escort. Before long, he contracted an illness that left him gaunt and haggard, his former arrogance and ambition reduced to nothing. As for me, I continued moving forward on my own path. After countless days and nights of hard work, I was accepted into a prestigious international university at the age of 18, majoring in finance. By the time I turned 22, my uncle smoothly handed over the family business to me. From that point on, I led the company to even greater success while carving out my own journey. My life became a narrative of my making, a story of triumph and brilliance waiting to be written.